is up, everybody? Skratch coming up with another Raid Shadow Legends video. In today's video, guys, we have no one else but KIZZLE. What's up, KIZZLE? How are you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? How are you doing? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
A pleasure, brother. It's been long overdue. I just realized I didn't have you on the channel before. So, guys, I'll be leaving his link in the description down below. Check out his Twitch, check out his YouTube channel, drop a subscribe, and let's show him some love. Now, in this video, guys, I brought the best man for the job, okay? We're gonna talk about the shard system, why I think that they should find a small improvement into it, because they're definitely not gonna change a big thing about it, but I still think like they should try to do some adjustments to it to make it a bit better, especially the 10x events, the 2x events, which are overall not really increasing your chances to get a legendary by a lot, you know? So of course we had to bring in KIZZLE for this video. We had to bring in the big guns, you know?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. No, it's yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, dude. Something's got to change. You know, that's really the bottom line with the shard system today. You know, we have one of the deepest pools of champions from any gacha game, and maybe, you know, the good way to say that is to sort of adjust it for the timeline. I mean, there are older gacha games that are also releasing champions that have half of the champions in the pool that Raid does, and in Raid you have very few chances to go for a specific champion. You know, so it's unfortunate because, you know, most games you see like a pity system, or you see something along the lines of, you know, a banner system or something that gives you an opportunity to get champions that are missing from your roster. And in Raid, the only way to go about doing that is spending an inordinate amount of money. And we've seen anecdotally that even spending $4,000, $5,000 on an X10, most of the time is leaving people with absolutely nothing. So, man, something's got to change. I 100% agree with you.
Absolutely. Like, I've seen so many people recently just going crazy. I know everybody's going to be like, well, as long as people, they're going to spend money, they're going to continue to do it this way. I always used to think the same way, but this is something that Plarium already had planned from before people started to spend money, you know, and probably down the road, they were going to adjust a couple of things if their business plan was not going in their favor. But I don't think like they're going to change just because they're going to drop a couple of whales, you know. I always thought from a business perspective that in a way it's better to have people that spend a little and have a lot of those people to spend all around, you know, better than have 10 people that spend like crazy. But I might be wrong on this, on the whole perspective here, you know.
You know, I'll be honest, like I thought Plarium's business model for the longest time, and this was just, you know, my own like conjecture, was, you know, to basically keep players for 90 days. Right, because that sort of matched their advertising spending, right? So I went over in one of my videos. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but I think it was around like 300, and it was, I almost want to say $500,000 a month they were spending on advertising at some given point in time. Just significant money, right? And, you know, but the thing is, so you kind of tell all their focus was really on advertising. You know, that was the way in which they were improving, you know, their earnings. And the thing I kept thinking to myself is, well, if you're only focused on advertising, then the game is just going to sit where it is. And we've seen that, you know, they were for a while very slow on releasing new content. And then I think they maybe surprised themselves a little bit with the fact that the game had some staying power. And then they started to try to really cater to the longer term players a little bit. But unfortunately, like most things, I think it was a little, you know, too late. But it's a tough one. Anecdotally, if I go back to play like Epic 7 right now, all the guys that I played Epic 7 with 2 years ago are still playing Epic 7, right? And that's the focus of Smilegate. Smilegate also has made Lost Ark, you know, so they're quite good at making video games at this point. But, you know, there's, you know, Epic 7 is a gacha. If I come back to Raid almost every 3-4 months, it's a new group of people.
It is.
You know? I mean,
it is.
And I think that's unique within gachas, to be honest. And I think it's indicative of the fact that Plarium is really just focused on that like 90-day revenue generator. You know, get as many people as you can, get as much money as you can out of them for 90 days. And if they move on after that, oh well. You know, that's my thoughts, at least.
Yeah, that definitely at the beginning, it felt like the only thing they were doing was getting in new people. Like, I've seen so many people quitting this game, like, unbelievable. If I'm gonna put all the games that I ever played together and then put their player bases together, all those games that I had so many players quitting, like Raid, you know, it's just crazy how many people are quitting the game. And basically, it's frustration. Like, I watched your video the other day that you've done with Santi. So good job on that. But it's kind of the truth, like they're just people getting frustrated, quitting, the account moves on, other people come in, maybe start cracking on it, and it's keep passing from owner to owner. And talking about people opening shards, right? Like we've seen people going with 4,000 shards, 4,000 ancients, and not getting the 10x champion, which honestly is just awful to see it. I don't wanna be in his skin to experience the feeling of how bad can that be, like it's just awful.
No, I agree, and it's so like the main thing we cover in the video with Cinti is, and there's a few more videos that need to happen now, since these videos have kind of have been done relatively well, but we talk a lot about the key performance indicators. So in any company, in any business, you're going to use key performance indicators to determine your relative success, right? So the thing I always tell people is, think about, any company you've ever worked for, somebody somewhere is talking about revenue or profit, right? Those are normal KPIs, right? KPI being the key performance indicator. That's also important to Plarium, but what's much more important is the ARPU, right? Which is the average return per daily user, or per user rather. And they actually look at ARPDAU, which is daily. That's not something I've really covered in depth yet, but I'm going to in the near future. The other thing that they focus on is the LTV, which is a lifetime value. So think about it this way, right? If you're inside of a staff meeting, right, at a Plarium, and you're trying to determine how well you're doing, one of the things you might want to look at is, on average, how much money does a player spend on a raid, right? And then here's the thing: if you're doing all the math, and if you have good business intelligence people and you have good data, really, then you can see over time, are people on average spending more money within their lifetime of playing, or spending less, right? So they want to push that number up as high as they can. And really, Cynthia and I kind of talked about that. And his whole thought process there, and we both agreed right away, is one of the easiest ways to do that is to dilute the pool of champions, right? And then not give you access to the champions that you want. So essentially, you're constantly spending money attempting to, build your account up and have the right units, But they're introducing new units, and new units, feel like they're doing something with the game, or maybe the new units are some meta, some not meta. And then the other spin on that was, if you make objectively bad champions, right? Now that, you've seen it, right? We've all talked about it before. You have your vault keepers, right? How many legendaries do you have that you've never done anything with?
Too many.
Too many. So, well, that's intentional, right? That's what they want. They want to have, let's say, 10%. I'm just making that number up, but let's say 10% of legendaries be viable within the game. That way, when you see the gold light up and you're all excited, right? And I want to do a video on this at some point, by the way, but that's a dopamine hit, right? You see big bright colors flash. That's your dopamine that goes off as far as your neurology is concerned. Think about playing a slot machine. What happens when you win? Right? All the lights go off, right? It's a dopamine hit. These guys built this to look this way for a very particular reason. So even though you got a negative, a useless legendary, you still feel like, I got a legendary. All right, my chances of getting a legendary are a little bit better now, which are categorically not true. So as long as they have this, and unfortunately they know the slot machine business so intimately, because that's what they do. Aristocrat is a slot machine manufacturer. So and the thing that I can always picture in my mind is, there's a staff meeting between Plarium and between Aristocrat. I can see some guy from Aristocrat or girl, saying, somebody brings up, hey, let's do a pity system. Let's do a guarantee. And you're going to see that person in the room go, we've never done a guarantee on a slot machine. If we did that, we'd lose money. We don't want to do that, right? Because that's the mentality.
Absolutely.
This game is much closer to a slot machine than it is a real gacha game, in my opinion. It's interesting. I got a guy that I played with for a long time, close friend of mine. We actually, we met on the game. We're buddies. His name's Troy. We're Instagram friends now. And anytime I got any kind of drama in my love life, he's all over it. So he's a good dude. Right? But he was telling me the other day he just kept cracking, shards on Ace on Waking Chaos era. And finally, I said, Troy, man, like, you all right? Like, what's going on, dude? It seems like you're overspending here. And he just flat out was like, bro, like, I'm a gambler. This is fun for me. I'm losing money. I'm not getting anything out of this, but this is fun for me.
Mm.
And bro, I gotta tell you, I'm not like that. I'm not wired that way. You know, the first time, this is the truth of it. I bought maybe $200 worth of void shards on my account. I was very lucky. I pulled an Ithos and I pulled a Skull Crown. And I think the next time around, I tried to pull again on a void event, and nothing happened. And I got all commons. At that point, like my brain just shut down. I was like, I'm objectively done with void. Like that's why my main account doesn't have any good void units. I saw no value at all in buying void, you know. But unfortunately, you know, some people are more, you know, programmed, if you want to call it that, to enjoy that anticipation, or that, you know, I don't know, hype, or whatever it is you call it, that feeling that you get from taking the risk of gambling and potentially having a reward from it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Like I don't like to the waste, you know. I'm not in there just for the hype of, yeah, I got a legendary and I'm happy.
Yeah.
I have like a goal, you know. I want to get that one. If I'm getting it, I'm getting it. If not, I'm gonna feel like shit, you know. I'm gonna feel like sick to my stomach that I spent those money. Pretty much that's kind of the way it goes with me, you know. But yeah, I actually pulled that page up if you want to walk it through.
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't have to go through all this, you know, and some of this is Australian terminology, so it's a little bit different than what I'm used to. But what's important here is if you look at the second bullet point on the right on page 18, you're going to see them say significant organic investment continues to drive lifetime value, which is the LTV, with user acquisition representing 28% of the revenue. So essentially that means like two things, right? It means a lot of things, but so the LTV is the lifetime value. We talked about that a second ago, but that's the average amount of money that a player spends during the entire duration of them playing the game, right? So when they say significant organic investment continues to drive it, what I personally think they're referring to is putting more champions in the pool, right?
Yeah.
Because that would drive the LTV. So if you wrote that like in another way, you know, you could say something along the lines of, we're making more money today because we're making it harder to get the usable units within the game that we produce. We're making it significantly harder. Thus, the players are spending even more money to get the, you know, usable. They wouldn't say meta, of course, you know, but to get the usable units, and that's how we've driven up the LTV. You know, instead they've done, you know, corporate gobbledygook, and it says significant organic investment, right?
Yeah, of course. Like what they're usually saying is like all our champions are equal. They're all great in their own way, but come on, every game has meta champions and non-meta champions, and diluting the pool is just a standard thing for any sort of game from this genre, you know. So I don't know why they're always trying to kind of like go around the subject with it, but it's definitely a thing. Like if you remember when you were playing the game and started doing content at the beginning, right? We barely got any updates on the game. Like it was 3-4 months for one small patch and barely any new champions, right? But for the last 1 year and a half, I think I'm on point with it. We didn't have a single month when they didn't release champions, you know. Every month a new fusion, Legos, epics, every single month. Yeah, so it's definitely the thing that they're talking about in a nicer way.
Yeah, and if you look, it's really interesting. So the second half of that says user acquisition. So that's just, you know, the cost of gaining new customers, right? New players in this case. That represents 28% of their revenue. So if you just look over at 2021, the revenue, and Pixel United is, it's not the entire company, it's just the digital games within Aristocrat's portfolio. And they do talk several times over about the size of Raid, and I think it's in here. While I'm looking for that, I'll kind of explain where I'm getting here. But at 20, I think what did they say, 26%. You know, that's $497,000 that they're spending, right, on actually generating, you know, new players. I'm bringing in new players. You know, so this is a marketing machine. You know, that's essentially what this is. And then if you go to page, I think let's look, 29. It actually shows you how they segment out the revenue for Pixel United. So they actually show RPG strategy action is 34%. And then actually it has a call out to the right, and it says that they made $476 million in the fiscal year of 2021 on Raid Shadow Legends alone.
It's
So
crazy, huh? It's
yeah,
crazy.
it's
If you're looking at
476.
the
Yeah,
casino bookings, is almost double. But considering that a game is making this money and is a mobile game, like everybody knows
yeah,
Raid. Like I swear, even my grandma who doesn't even go on a mobile device knows about Raid.
yeah,
Okay, Raid Shadow Legends. This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. This is a massive meme all over the world because
yeah.
there are not many companies that go so aggressive on advertising and stuff. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And if you go down one page to page 30, it does show you right there that in fiscal year 2021, Raid Shadow Legends was 26% of the revenue of the entire digital company. So, I mean, you can look at that column. You know, it's significantly larger than any other, title that they have today.
Yeah, it's double
And
than their highest actually, which is crazy.
yeah, yeah. It surprised me that game Vikings War Clans, because that was, I think that was really the moneymaker. Or at the time when they bought Plarium, it surprised me that still actually makes a little bit of money. That game's quite old, but 5% is not. That's not anything little. So what that should really go to show you is they're very effective at keeping people spending on games over a long period of time. And you would normally couple that with, okay, they really know how to treat their player base, right? What we've learned, if there's a core thesis statement to make about gachas relative to Plarium, we've actually learned that inordinate amounts of money can be made without catering to the customer at all. I mean, not even a little bit, but honestly, by kind of robbing them constantly, and doing the opposite of what they want, and you can still make, what would you say a minute ago, $476 million a year. You can make that kind of money and not really care at all what your customer thinks.
Pretty much. I mean, I've always felt at the beginning when the game got released and stuff that it's kind of like a quick cash grab, and I was like, why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just cater for the hardcore players that they want to stay and play? Because overall they can milk this cow like forever. Why don't they want to milk the cow forever? Why they just want to drop the cow and move to the new one? Because I feel like that's how their entire company kind of worked with the games. If I remember it right from before, they were kind of saying like, yeah, we're making games quick, moving to the next ones. And then I think you talked about the subject actually when they released the CVC and they said that they're gonna move to actually to look to the longevity of the game and stuff, and they bring in new game modes. I was just gonna ask you, what do you think about the guaranteed champion system and stuff like, and the way they drop it? Because this was kind of like out of nowhere, such a surprise that we had a guaranteed champion.
Yeah, I think the way you have to do that system is you have to have a guarantee up. I would call it like a banner system. You have to have it up at any given time, right? So I think if you rotate new champions in, let's say every week, every 2 weeks, but there's always a banner up, for let's say 2 champions, or, even if they wanted to, and I really think it should be champion specific, if I'm being honest. But if you were Plarium and you wanted to still kind of use your shady business practices, you could even do it by faction. You could say, okay, well, today, if you pull shards, you can only pull from this faction.
Yeah.
Right? And if they wanted to, really kind of emphasize that, they could say, okay, well, all week you're going to pull from, this faction. But, by the end of the week, we're going to have one special day where you have a bonus chance to get Hegemon or something to that effect. It'd be better than the system today, but it still really isn't, the ideal system. The ideal system in my mind would be rotate in 2 champions maybe every 5 days. With the champion pool they have, you'd probably have to do that. But I like to see every champion get rotated through the system, right, through this particular system, within maybe 8 months. I know it's hard to do because there's so many legendaries in the system today. And I'm only referring to legendaries, by the way.
Yeah.
And then, you can even put it, so that like if you're, rolling specifically for Siffy, you might even throw like a couple good epics in there, so, okay, well, you can only get these 8 epics in Siffy, and then you have to have a pity system if you're going to do that. And I think, unfortunately, if they did a pity system, I think it's totally against their business model. But I do think you'd be looking at like a $700 or $800 champion, and that's going to cause a whole new level of rage within the community. However, the top, let's say 0.01% of spenders, within the game are probably gonna be like, well, that's great. That's going to save me a ton of money, But ideally, if you were able to get the champion at pity for, let's say, $300, and that's still up there, but that's in line with what other gachas do. I think a void unit or a void equivalent in Epic 7 is probably around 400, 450. But the thing about that is, let's say it comes up and let's say your account in particular, you really want to get a Siphi or you really want to get a Warlord. Whenever that banner comes up, it might actually cost you the full 400, 450. But think about it, you're not going to have buyer's remorse. You're not going to sit there afterwards and be like, man, like I'm over this game, like I'm done, like I don't want any. You're gonna be like, you know what, I spent a lot more money than I planned on, but I have it. I have Siphi, so I'm good. I'm going to go build my Siphi now, and I'm going to quit thinking about the money I spent on it.
Exactly. You will live with some enjoyment out of it. You know that you got, you accomplished your goal. Like I know I went through sort of an experience like this with Hegemon. I still didn't got it. Whatever. I'm over it now. But at that point, was really disappointing. Because I saved up shards for such a long time, and it's been 16 months from a Hegemon event to the next Hegemon event. 16 months. And it's the same with Ghostbone. Since then, there were 16 months at that point. Even today, probably, I can't even remember how long ago it was, but is almost 1 year and almost 2 years since the last time we had an event for Ghostbone. So how you're saying it, to have kind of like a banner system would be something great to allow us to get champions. Even if they're doing it for faction, which is probably the dodgy system. But the guaranteed champions, like we have Wither, she's an awesome champion, but she's not the GOAT, I don't think we're ever gonna see the GOAT as a guaranteed champion. Like, what do you think? Will that be such a bad idea? Will that drop a lot of money for them during a longer period of time? Like, I know you guys were talking in your video about the way they're kind of like acting with it. They make you spend money, you're not getting it, then again you're gonna try spending money till you just have enough of it. Will that be such a bad system if time to time they will be bringing in like a new GOAT and just let everyone have it that's deciding to spend for it, or people that are saved up shards free to play? Because a lot of people will be able to do it as long as they prepare for this sort of events,
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good question, and so the answer is sort of complicated, and and unfortunately, it goes back to what I said in the beginning of the video. I think when you're in, I did a video called "Raid Made Billions," and for me, still to this day, I think it's the best video I've ever done. But I actually dive into how they budgeted marketing for the game. And they spent, I'll just kind of summarize, the key point of it, but they spent so much money on a daily basis, right? And I was told this by a guy that literally was a subcontractor for Plarium, and he did the marketing for them. I mean, him and a bunch of other people, of course. He was on the team essentially. So he walked me through the whole thing, and then I actually went and I had it confirmed by one of the creative directors. I kind of, in my own sort of manipulative way, was like, hey, in my mind, I would imagine to be able to do the advertisement that you're doing, you'd have to do these things. And he was like, yeah, that's what we did. And I was like, okay, cool. I got to confirm now. I didn't want to talk about it for a long time because the guy wanted to be anonymous, and, so, there's been a long time since he and I had that conversation, that since I've had it confirmed by one of the creative directors. At this point, I don't really think I'm necessarily putting his information out there, but he wanted to be between me and him. But essentially, the core point there is they were spending so much money on a daily basis on advertising, even pre-release, right? That if they didn't hit a certain return on a daily basis, then they weren't going to spend money the next day, right? Now, that's a crazy system, right? Because normally, in a business, it's almost, it actually, it is gambling in and of itself. You would normally have, your marketing budget, and it is what it is. And, you might, you're not going to really spend over it. And if you do, you're going to have a really good explanation for it. They were outspending it so much that they had to find a reason to justify continuing to do it. And they did that by hitting literally daily goals, right? So, when you think about it like that, their focus, they have this thing going on where they're spending so much money that all their focus is on this one thing. Are we actually able to, continue to do this? And I just pulled up the numbers. I did the math, and I had it at, I think 20 million per month is what they spent on advertisements. And they needed to hit 4 to 5% return on the first day, right? So day one, every time they'd spend money, they had to have a 5% return minimum. And if they didn't have it, right, then they didn't move forward. They expected to have a full return on their investment by day 30. Whenever I build a financial model at work, I hope to have a return on my investment within 5 years. So, being within, honestly, that's not just for my industry. That's pretty standard all in all. So to be in a situation where you expect to have all of your investment back within 30 days, this whole mechanism's built to keep Plarium focused on a very short-term goal, right? So I don't know that you can shift Plarium's culture from short-term focus to long-term focus, is really what I'm trying to say, because of the fact that they were hand to mouth for so long, just in the way they advertise this game, but you would have to get Plarium, to be on board with the fact that, hey, more players would spend more money, right? And our mega whales will spend less, but in the end, we'll probably make more money. I don't know that you can get them on board with that. And the reason why is they were so hyper focused on short-term goals, right? For so long. I don't know that they can see the forest through the trees anymore,
I think so too. Yeah, like I don't really see them improving the chances much. Even we have the empowerment system, the dupe system, and all this. Like we need so many dupes overall, but I don't see them increasing the chances from that 0.5% to 1% constantly and make it a double X, a 2%. I don't see that happening anytime soon, honestly. What do you think?
No, I don't think they'll ever increase that number. I think putting together some sort of guaranteed or a pity system is a better way to go about it, because think about it, they're just to be able to do that budget. We learned this whenever they were acquired. They were acquired, I think, for 500 million, and then there was another, like, I think $100 million bond involved. I think it was a bond, and just having significant hardware and software installed so that Aristocrat could measure Plarium down to the minute of basically their sales. So, one thing that we have in private equity is you have to do, your financial statements daily. And most companies, you do that monthly, and it takes a lot of extra money and emphasis and focus to do it daily. Right. So, yeah, I think within that whole culture, I think, you might get a situation where they do a pity system, but I think they're just so focused on the short term, given all that. I don't know, but I don't think they'd ever extend the percentage, because no matter what they do, right, they're going to expect an immediate increase in revenue, right? Otherwise, they're going to quit doing it. So a long-term play isn't really for Plarium. It's not what this game's all about.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I think so.
Yeah.
If they would add a guaranteed system, like a mercy system, into the 10x, because I feel like even if they're gonna increase it to 20x or 30x, it's still pretty much gonna be the same kind of food. You're just gonna eat it with a different spoon, basically, because it's the same thing at the end. It's not a much higher chance overall. It's still something better, but it still might not be enough, because you can still go and spend 4,000 shards and still not get that champion. So a mercy system into it would be a good idea. But then some people are saying that's gonna make the game even more pay to win. And why would the rich people get them like this? I don't know what to say about that part, honestly.
Sometimes people just come up with really illogical conclusions, and I think it's just best to sort of ignore them. I get a comment every time I do one of these videos that says, "Why are you even talking about this? Plarium's not going to change." And it's like, yeah, that's not my goal, though. My goal isn't to convince Plarium to change. My goal is to educate, the players and say, hey, guys, look, you're actually being manipulated right now. And if you want to keep getting manipulated, that's fine, dude. Do your thing. But just in case you didn't know how you're being manipulated, I'm going to show you real quick, and then you can go decide whether or not you want to buy a pack.
Exactly.
So that's always been my goal. But you get people that are kind of short-sighted. I mean, look, the game is... and I don't know how much guys spend in your guild, but in Sacred Pandas the other day, one of the guys said that he was I think he was 70,000 in on one event. I mean, that's what you have to do. I don't want to say you have to do 70,000 one event, but I would venture to say, if you want to be top rated or top ranked in Platinum Arena, you probably need a minimum of a $20,000 account, but that's really your area of expertise. I mean, what do you think the minimum number that you would need to spend on your account if you want to be relevant in, let's say, top 20 Platinum?
Top, you need more than that. Like, a lot of people think that it's all about champions, but it's really not. Like, you can have the best champions in the entire game if your gear sucks, you know? Like, if you don't have the gear, and the gear, you can buy some sets, but you cannot buy everything. And it requires months, years of farming to get an account at the top level, you know? So, they are... You probably need way more than that, probably double to have a very strong account to be able to do that constantly in Platinum Arena. A lot of people say with the shards as well, like, well, why you guys don't ask for a spending strike? We gotta hit them when it hurts. Yeah, we can, but if I'm gonna ask you guys to do it, for example, all the content creators are gonna ask the community, right? The community that watches YouTube is probably, what, 10% of the entire raid community that plays the game maximum, you know, at a maximum. And we're asking the 10% to don't spend. 0.1% will actually listen to don't spend. The rest are gonna be like, well, whatever, what is that guy talking about? Let him talk rubbish. Plus the 90% of people, they're not gonna acknowledge what we're saying. So we're not gonna do nothing with that either, guys. This is kind of like how he said, educating you guys to be more self-aware of what's happening in the game, how are the systems, how are the shard pools going, and then you decide if you want to go for it. Sometimes we do short videos, you see a lot of legendaries, and you might be getting like, yeah, that's awesome, but I'm always putting my videos when I'm actually getting wrecked, just so you guys remember that, okay, I just watched Skratch's video, maybe I'm not gonna spend this event, you know, I'm gonna skip it because Skratch got wrecked. You know, that kind of situation.
No, and I think that's what people have to understand is like, you know, look, I published one shard opening video years ago, and I recorded probably like 4 or 5. And I didn't publish the other ones because they were horrible. You know, I mean, I didn't pull anything for that particular individual or for myself, whatever I was doing at the time. And, you know, I didn't really think about it in that particular moment. But I do think about it now because, you know, when you're a content creator, your goal is to make content. So somebody's saying, hey, do you want to pull shards for me? They come out, at you with, 50,000 shards or some crazy number. You're like, yeah, that's great. I mean, I'll make some money on that video. That's quick and easy. That'll be entertaining for people because we're definitely going to pull legendaries with that many shards. But the reality of that is, we put these things out for entertainment purposes, not to make you think that this is your reality.
Exactly. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, and it's a tough one. It's a really tough one. I think today, you'll probably see the content creators do more and more shard opening videos because the content is so stale and stagnant. How many Hydra videos can you really do? Hydra is so far above what your average player is even going for today. I mean, you're really appealing to the upper echelon of players if you're going to be doing Hydra videos. And I know you do quite a bit of them, but at the end of the day, my core point is you can probably exhaust your Hydra videos in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then you're kind of scratching at the surface. You're trying to figure out, what can I talk about today? It's a little bit different than what I talked about before. So a shard opening video is somebody comes at you, hey, Skratch, I got 6,000 shards. It's like, cool, that's easy, man. I don't have to make any content today.
Bring them on.
Right?
That's one thing, but you know how we always say it as well. Like we're putting guides, content, and the views are kind of like, and it's something that will benefit everyone overall, But then you put a shard video and the views are just like, boom, because people they like to watch shard pulls. I was watching only shard pulls on YouTube before I even started doing content, just because I liked it, I didn't thought that, okay, this is my reality. I'm gonna get the exact same thing because I've seen that guy doing it, I just watched them because I found them entertaining, and because I didn't have shards myself probably at that point, that kind of like consolated me, like I was okay, I feel better now, so let me move on to something else. But that's kind of like the truth with this game. I don't see that any sort of changes in the way the shard pools are gonna work. Probably the guaranteed champions are gonna be the best things we're gonna get anytime soon, guys. Kind of like the sad reality to call it like that. So save shards. You've seen a lot of people opened the entire weekend shards for Xavier, Rotos, and the rest of the champions. Then bang, surprise guaranteed champion. And with her, she's actually a powerful champion. She's not a GOAT, but she's a very powerful champion as well. So I feel like I don't know what to say about it. We do have this weekend 2x sacreds and 10x on a champion. So they seem to become more regular, and maybe this is kind of like their goal in improving the summons,
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this earlier, and we talked a little bit about it before we started recording. So, um, if you wanted to have a significant message to Plarium, right? The way I would start it, I probably would not start a spending strike, because I don't know. To your point, how many people are you really getting convinced to spend? How many you might get somebody really fired up, in one of your videos. Okay, I'm not spending another dollar on this game, and then all of a sudden a really good high value pack comes out, and they're like, well, I'm gonna grab this though.
Skratch is
I
never
think
gonna know about it, like.
yeah. But they did respond in kind when Darth pushed really hard to have 1-star reviews done. I know that frustrated them, and some changes were made within the company shortly after that. I can't tell you that those two things were linked, but I do know for sure that they were frustrated about that. They asked Darth to stop what he was doing. It ruffled the feathers, let's just say that. But the key that you'd have to, and it's unfortunate because we just talked about this, but the timing right now for something like that is actually pretty perfect. So if you look, the parent company Aristocrat, they attempted to acquire a company called Playtech. And I won't go into the deep dive here, but essentially that's another hardware gambling company. That's not a mobile game or anything like that. And they failed in that attempt, right? And it looked like they were going to achieve, the acquisition. It was like a it was a $3.7 billion US dollar acquisition. So massive, massive acquisition. And they failed at that. So now, being a publicly traded company, they have to have a really positive message to go back to their shareholders with. They have to say, hey, we failed at this, but here's what we're doing right. This is why you should continue to invest in our stock. Well, we've seen that, on their digital side, Raid Shadow Legends alone is 30% of the revenue, right? So if you had something like a spending strike that could affect that, that'd be great. I don't know that you could organize it, but if you had something that showed that wasn't going as well as the shareholders think, right, then you might be able to generate some questions to the leadership. Like maybe the next quarter there's a release, their quarterly earnings report, and maybe you get the investment banks, people from like JP Morgan or whatever, to say, hey, your main cash cow, Raid Shadow Legends, there's rumor that there's some disgruntled players within the community, and there seems to be your 1-star reviews were at, like, let's say 2% of your total reviews, and now they're at like 10% of your total reviews. I think something like that would work. At least if you can get pressure, right? Because everybody has a boss. This is what people have to understand. The CEO's boss is the board. The board's boss is the institutional shareholders that have the largest, shareholdings of the company. Those are the people that are going to do their own research. And if they find out that something like a game generating, 30% of the revenue for the digital platform has disgruntled player base, that's going to be a key question. So I do think there's a way to do that. I think you'd have to link it to poor reviews. You probably have to attach it to the release of another gadget like Awaken Chaos Era. And it'd have to be after the company had a hit on its core business, like failing at this potential acquisition. So I do think the timing's right if the content creators and the communities within Discord got together and found a way to push back, like with 1-star reviews or something else along those lines. I think it would be more effective today than it would have a month ago, or that it potentially would in 3 months. Is really my point.
The sweet spot, basically.
Yeah, the timing is right. If people were to advocate for a change, the timing is absolutely right for that. And it may get more right down the line. I personally have always waited for Plarium and Raid to have a downturn in revenue, but I've never really seen it. But I've always expected it to come, and I expected it to hit pretty hard. So whenever that eventually happens, I think you'll see significant changes in the game. But, just about every game out there right now has a, if you just want to look at like a quality of life change, their version of the tavern is significantly easier to navigate, right? So if you just look at the fact that we've been asking for quality of life changes on the tavern alone for how long now, right? And they're releasing new champions every week, but they can't fix the tavern, right? You see where the focus is. The focus is not on making the current players happy. It's on diluting the pool of champions so that you spend more money. So unfortunately, you have to look at the ask, right? We're asking Plarium to categorically change the way that they are successful. It's not going to happen, unless we created some sort of legitimate threat to the sustainability of raid. And we can't really create a real one. So if you did create one, you'd have to do it in some sort of grassroots effort that would have enough of an impact to get to people that are paying very close attention, like institutional investors.
Yeah,
that'd be the way to do it.
That makes sense. I don't really see any sort of ways of doing it. That don't spend strike, that's just the thing that's never gonna hold, because we cannot control everyone's wallets and stuff, so it's something that I don't think is ever gonna stand. It's kind of like a Chewbacca defense. I kind of like to use this line now.
Yeah, I like that, dude. I like that. Oh man.
Yeah, man, definitely a good talk, guys. This is kind of like the way the system works. The hope is not really there, that is gonna change, because that's what makes the company successful. Would be nice to get something improved in terms of a summoning system, these chances to change a bit, especially when the 10x events are on, the mercy system to be more transparent, to actually be able to see the mercy system in the game, to see what champions you can pull, what's the percentage to pull each champion in part. I do have a feeling that some of them might have a different percentage than others. Like the better champions, they might not have such a high chance as the bad champions to be pulled from shards. This is something that we cannot see. It's hidden in their coding, and unfortunately we're not able to see that. But I always felt like something was dodgy there,
Yeah, I can't speak to it. I really have no idea. But if there were a company out there that were going to do something extremely shady in order to make money, I think it's Plarium. I think that's the business model, right? So I mean, who knows? I mean, anything's possible. They're not really treating their current player base well. They're not really going about monetizing this game in ethical and moral ways. So all bets are off, man. I mean, and I think you have to realize sometimes that that's the way we're being treated as players, and you have to kind of ask yourself, I don't know if you're familiar with the rapper Kevin Gates. I probably sound like the nerdiest person quoting him in this way. But he said on this thing I was watching the other day, he said, if I walk into a restaurant and I'm not treated the way I want to be treated, I'll tip the waiter and leave. He said, I'm not going somewhere to be tolerated. I'm going somewhere to be celebrated. And if you're spending money, right, that is a perfectly acceptable position to have, right? But we're tolerated in this game. We're not celebrated. That comes from Plarium's actions.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Yeah, that's the way it is, and that's the way the world kind of works now. So
yeah, really unfortunately.
Yep. But guys, great pleasure to have you on the channel, KIZZLE. And don't forget, guys, go and subscribe to KIZZLE right now. You will be finding the link in the description down below and in the pinned comments. And we'll catch you all soon in the next video. Peace.
Peace.